Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest mailbag podcast. I'm Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis. As always, big shout out and big thank you to Exterior Home Solutions. For a free estimate, you can give them a call today at 865-524-5888 or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. A lot going on this week, a whole lot of recruiting questions in the mailbag, some baseball, football as always. We'll go ahead and start with recruiting. And John Lee wants to know, Austin Price, Kamarion Franklin, where do we currently stand and what needs to happen to close him?
Deep in that one, Auburn, Ole Miss, Tennessee, all, kind of to me at the top. It's hard not to worry about Ole Miss a little bit. I mean, they're just down the road, and so what does it take to close him? I don't know, man. I mean, I just think he needs to have another strong weekend in Knoxville, and there are people around him that are very pro Tennessee, and we'll kind of see where things go from there. But like I said on the board, and like I said for a while, Tennessee's got to land their fair share the next 6 weeks. And when I say fair share, that doesn't mean they have to go sweeping everybody. Like Tennessee's not going to likely end up with Wingo, Matthews, and Jefferson, as their wide receivers, just like they're likely not going to end up with Winery and Cam Franklin across the defensive front. If you can get some semblance of a combination of those guys, it's a real positive. And, again, I think that Tennessee's in it with Cam, just like they're in it with Winery, and we'll see if they can figure out a way to land one of them.
We'll go to Nieper, and he wants to know, who is the offensive lineman, Brent, that you expect to make the biggest jump this year?
That's a good question. I mean, we don't know who John Williams is, right? I mean, we haven't seen – John Campbell. We haven't. John Williams was the guy who did the score.
He was a composer. He was a composer, maybe.
Sorry about that. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a good question. I mean, is that Addison Nichols? Is he the guy that makes the jump? There's a lot of talk about him, but I think he's got to go out and prove it and be consistent. Somebody's got to make a jump at right tackle, but that jump is just simply embracing being a right tackle. To me, I don't think that there's a huge jump that's required for Gerald Mincey from a physicality standpoint, or it's just more mentally that does he embrace being a right tackle and take off and run with that job.
Rob, we'll go to Doolittle Vol. Have you ever seen this much success across the board with this athletic department?
Gosh, no, and I'm mainly focused on the big three. I mean, where our focus is of football, basketball, and here in the past few years, thanks to Coach Fratello, baseball. But no, man, I think it's pretty unprecedented. To New Year's Six Bowl, at one point you're ranked number one in the college football playoff, Sweet 16 team. You spend some time in the top five in basketball, and obviously one of the 8 going to Omaha. And lady, don't shortchange the Lady Vols either. I mean, Sweet 16 appearance there. AP can tell you what the golf team did, but I know it was not too shabby. And it really is unprecedented. But and for fans, it's especially when football drives the boat, it's been a long time coming.
Well, and I think what's fascinating by it too, for me, Austin, is it's the assembly of the people here leading this program has come from all these people who are in large part no longer here, right? I mean, it's not like – and Danny White deserves credit because, I mean, he's got football going in the right direction and there's a lot of momentum, but he inherited Rick Barnes, who was hired 3 ADs ago, by Dave Hart. Tony Vitello was hired by John Curry, who got run out of town because he botched a football search. And you look, I mean, Philip Fulmer hires Kelly Harper and he hires Brennan Webb, and then here comes in Danny White and he hires Josh Heupel. So what's really fascinating is it's been this building and collection that's all been hired by people who got run out of town as the AD because they botched another sport, to the point that they lost their job, in particular football.
Yeah, ultimately it all comes down to football, right? I mean, like Tennessee was having some success in these other sports the last few years, but once football turns the corner, then it draws like the real spotlight on everybody. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right, Hubbs. It is a kind of a hodgepodge of who hired who, and it's not just one person. Ultimately though, I mean, it's kind of winning breeds winning, and atmospheres, across the board help with things. Football's able to take kids to a baseball game and have a fun time and an atmosphere there. Golf, basketball, all of them, they all go to football games, and they will tell you to a man. All coaches will tell you, when football's going and we can bring our official visitors in on a football weekend, that just helps our chances of landing a kid in our sport. So it all kind of works hand in hand. And now that football's kind of seems like it's turned the corner, I think we'll know for sure this fall that they've turned the corner. If they can back it up, then boom.
Well, Austin, I think you make a great point just about the camaraderie between those guys. I mean, we were at football camp on Sunday, I guess it was, and the number of people that had their phones streaming the baseball game, and a coach would go from one station to the next station, in a period of the drill, and they would run by and go, "Hey, you got an update on the game? You got an update on the score." Tony Vitello's at all. Rob, how many basketball games is Tony Vitello hanging out, at the student section or right behind Rick Barnes's bench? And the number of times we see all those coaches at football games and everything, that's the difference in it. Even when they've had success in the past, in my opinion, there's been some jealousies along the way. This has got much more of a camaraderie feel right now than I can remember having in a long, long time. Success helps that, but these guys seem to all get along a lot more than we've seen in the past, Rob.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I think a lot of that, starts with Coach Barnes and the fact that, at one point in time, he was the highest paid coach on campus, which never, is the case here or just about any SEC school not named Kentucky, and could not care less that now Josh Heupel makes nearly twice as much money as he does. I mean, supportive of that, and I think that mindset is, kind of what you're talking about. You talk about Coach Vitello, not only at Tennessee basketball games, but wearing his Akai Ziegler jersey. I mean, how many games is Coach Barnes out on the porch or Josh Heupel out on the porch at baseball games? And yeah, I mean, obviously, as you pointed out, winning, glosses, makes it all. Nobody would care that these three guys were buddies. That the athletes were so supportive of each other if they were, going 4-8 in football and not going to the NIT and basketball and that kind of thing. But it is, there is a lot of camaraderie and a lot of support in that athletic department right now.
All right, let's move on and talk a little baseball. Sam Smith wants to know, Tennessee gets the best college pitcher, arguably since Steven Strasburg, under the lights Saturday night in Omaha. What approach would you use to survive against Skeens, and what are the appropriate expectations for the team in Omaha? Skeens, good pitcher. We know this, and it's not like he's walked a lot of guys either. He's got 188 strikeouts this year to only 18 walks, which is just incredible to look at it on paper right now. He's going to throw hard. He's going to throw multiple. I say multiple. He's going to throw, probably 15, 20 pitches plus 100 miles an hour. That's what he did against Tennessee the first time. Try to make him work. Gas is coming. He's gotten off speed, but try to work deep into accounts. And it was good to see Maui Ahuna do that in Game 3 of the Super Regionals. Expectations, for Tennessee in Omaha. I mean, guys, tell me if I'm wrong here. Tennessee's not the favorite, okay, but Tennessee's not just happy to be here now. I felt like that was 2021. Tennessee's not just happy to be here. They've been to the College World Series. This is their second time in the last 3 years. They were the bad boys of college baseball. They were the best team, arguably, in the regular season ever last year. They're not just happy to be here. They're good enough to win some games, make things interesting. They're not the favorite, but, I expect Tennessee to go out there and compete and win some games and hang around for a little while. That's my expectation. Brent, do you see anything differently?
Well, they've got the pitching to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you lose game one and get in the loser's bracket, you've got enough pitching that can let you hang around and make some noise there. My question about this team is, how do they handle the moment? Okay. And I thought they handled the moment at Clemson, obviously rallying for a win well. They battled back and handled everything well in Hattiesburg, Mississippi after game one. Yeah, Tennessee was there 2 years ago, but how many of these guys were there 2 years ago? So you got to be careful that you're not awestruck. I remember in '95, I think Todd Helton felt like his team was a little bit in awe of being there. Like this was, wow, it's the College World Series. So he goes to Delmonico and says, give me the ball. I want to pitch game one. He throws a complete game against Clemson, in game one and was unbelievable. But he recognized the fact that, hey, somebody's got to be out here to calm things down. That would be my question about Tennessee is, can they handle the moment when it starts? Because these guys, the program's been there recently, but not a lot of guys, Austin, on this team were hanging around when that happened.
That's right. Nobody. I mean, all the pitchers weren't here. I mean,
well, you got bullpen arms that were here, but again,
yeah, but I don't care about them. I'm talking about the starting pitchers that take.
They're a part of the team, but yeah,
100%. I mean, Frank's part of the team. Tony's part of the team. I mean, those guys can impress upon some of these guys what it's like, but until you're out there in the moment, you don't know. And those bullpen arms aren't going to be out there to start that baseball game. And if Tennessee falls behind early because Andrew Lindsay has the butterflies and can't get it across the plate and walk 2 or 3, and then somebody gives up a 3-run homer and you're down 3-0 out of the gate, ain't nothing those bullpen arms can do outside of come in and try to rectify the situation. My point is that's why Christian Scott's important. He wasn't playing a whole lot at the time, but he was at least here, so he understands the feel of the park. He understands the vibe. And so, I do think that that's something you have to at least keep in mind is most of this team was not here when the team last went, and basically none of them really played a whole lot. So it's they are the ones that were here. So, I think that if you can get past the butterflies in game one, I think it helps you that they're going against schemes because I think it zeroes in the focus. If you were playing a lesser opponent, an opponent that you were favored by to win by, then I think it might, make you go in probably less focused. I think the fact you're going in against the prohibitive favorite to be the number one pick, the best pitcher in college baseball, as Eric just said, for every strikeout he has 18 strikeouts for 1 walk. I mean, he's really, really good, and I think that the focus will be there.
Are we going to gloss over the Steven Strasburg reference and Eric Kane immediately having to go to the Google machine?
Steven Strasburg? That's my time, buddy. I know exactly who that is.
Come on. Did he play college baseball in the early 2000s?
Strasburg? No. He would do.
I know who he is.
He skipped college or went to a prep school or something.
He played for San Diego State in college.
Oh, no, that's Bryce. Bryce did that. But now Strasburg was, gosh, if he could ever stay healthy, poor guy can't even get on the mound nowadays. I agree. Brent said it best, and I beat this drum for all season long, but now you're seeing it now. I mean, you got pitching. If you lose a game, you still feel good about your options. I mean, literally, they feel so great about A.J. Russell, and A.J. Russell's barely pitched this postseason, just because they've been saving him, right? Because he's another option to go out there and throw 5 innings if you need it. So, it's
and Austin said it best, and this is right. I mean, the fact of who they're playing Saturday night and the pitcher they're going against, nobody expects Tennessee to win. I mean, all the pressure's on LSU
money, baby.
To win the game, right? I mean, he's the best pitcher of baseball. They were the number 1 team in the country for a good bit of the season. They are a favorite in a lot of people's eyes to be in the championship series. So they're the underdog. I mean, they can play Cinderella a little bit, if you will. Yeah, they got a lot of pitching, but everybody's going to say, all right, LSU moves on Saturday night. That nobody's going to pick Tennessee to win that game, which I don't think is a bad place for Tennessee to be at all, because I think that's easier for them to relax and play, but because there is not pressure on them as if they were playing, they were a 1 seed or the top 2 seed out there playing, one of the lesser seeds in that tournament. So I think it's a bad setup, Rob.
Eric, I think you know better than anybody. You're right. I think it fits their mindset perfectly. I mean, what we've seen the last 2 weekends. I mean, they go to Clemson. You hear, Clemson's won 17 in a row. Tennessee's terrible on the road. They win that region in incredibly dramatic fashion. They get snubbed for hosting a region. Have to go on the road to Southern Miss. I just think. I think this team uses that stuff as fuel and plays great with a chip on their shoulder.
I think so too. I mean, you look at this bracket too. Their side of the bracket of their regional they got to get out of to make it to the College World Series final. I mean, you got LSU on Saturday, sure. You got Wake Forest in that region or in that bracket, and you got Stanford in that bracket. Whereas on the other side, good baseball teams. I'm not saying they're not, but well, you look at Florida. You really like Florida's path to the College World Series final, for sure, with TCU, Virginia, and Oral Roberts, who are good teams, but they're not Wake or LSU. So yeah, Rob, I agree. They kind of feast on that mindset, and they'll put it to use in Omaha this weekend. Let's go now to Athlon. Got a couple of recruiting questions with Fountain to USC for now. Who is the top edge rushing targets standing, and what are the standing with those targets?
Well, I mean, Tennessee's going to, continue to swing at guys like Elijah Rushing and Danny Okoye. Those are probably a touch, I don't know, unrealistic is probably not the right word, but they're just a tougher road to land those guys. I just think you play the long game with Cam Fountain. That one's pretty fresh. It's why they're not bringing him in here at the end of the month. Makes no sense because he just committed to USC. Let that one kind of lie. Let him get a little distance between that commitment and that visit, and try to get him in here for a visit this fall.
Thoughts on where Tennessee is with Winery after his Oklahoma visits? Looked rather bored in a couple of Twitter posts I've seen. No smiles, no nothing.
I think that's just his personality. Williams Winery is not exactly Mr. He's not going to be grinning from ear to ear, right? That's just not who he is. Dylan Stewart's the same way. I mean, those kids are reserved. They're more stone-faced. That's just their personalities. So I don't think you can base anything based off of a Twitter picture. I think Tennessee's still very much in this one. Comes to town this weekend, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Again, this weekend, next weekend, and then the following 3 to 4 weeks are massive for this recruiting class.
What starters are on the edge and might come back for the baseball team if they don't like their draft position? Hoping Denton comes back selfishly. Real quick, Dickey's going to be drafted. He's gone. Inslee's back. Scott's out of eligibility. Denton is a guy that I could see coming back. Shortstop Maui's going to be drafted. Right side of the infield's coming back at this time in terms of they're not draft eligible. Your catchers, you're in a good spot there. Pitching, Doe's gone, Lindsey's gone to the draft. And then there's some bullpen arms. You know that Sewell's going to be gone. He's out of eligibility. But a lot of those guys have the options to come back and use that COVID year. So it's kind of a wait-and-see approach. But Denton would be the one to watch because he does, to my understanding, have a COVID year. And he's kind of, he could get drafted, but it might not be, worth it if you want to come back and try to up your stock. So, we'll have to see. Last one here from Athlon. How crazy are the next 6 weeks going to be in recruiting for the Vols? Over, under 5.5?
I think they'll be plenty crazy. I will go. If you're having the success you hope you're having, it better be over. If not, then it's going to be more of a bang your head moment. But I mean, you got to factor in Boo's committing Saturday. Ronan O'Connell is going to come to a decision pretty quick. Edwin Spillman, and I think Amari Jefferson does something sometime in the next 6 weeks or so. I mean, he's probably the least likely of them to not do something in the next 6 weeks, but I think they're still possible. All those are in-state kids, and then Braylon Russell's coming off the board July 14th. There's several guys that are going to come off the board there in the month of July, and so for that very Max Anderson's another guy. For that very reason, you better hope it's north of what he just said.
I Heart Vols wants to know, will Grant Furking be the Jimmy Sexton of NIL?
No. Because it's a total different deal. I think Grant Furking is going to be a guy who
I think he just means is Grant Furking going to be a name that's known in this realm and is going to be very successful, essentially.
Because he's a former athlete who's a business guy who's been successful, that understands it and is committed through his work with On3 to further educate guys. I think his name is going to be out there with NIL because I think he is going to be a guy who can not only talk to business owners, or donors or school administrators, but he can also talk to players about NIL stuff, Austin. And I think he's committed to trying to help guys who are players like he was understand how to use your name and your image to make money out there. So, I mean, I don't think his name's going away in the NIL world anytime soon.
No, it's not. I mean, he just got done playing, so he's going to connect with recruits, with current players at schools all across the country, for a long time, because he's not that old. And 20 years from now, who knows what it looks like 5 years from now, much less 20 years from now. 20 years from now, probably a little harder to connect with high school kids just because you get older. But at the same time, I mean, depending on who knows what he's doing, in that realm. So I just don't think you can compare the two.
All right, we got plenty more questions left here on Tennessee recruiting, Tennessee baseball, Tennessee football, and a whole lot more. But first, a word from our proud sponsors, Exterior Home Solutions.
Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions.
All right, we continue on here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Big thanks, as always, to Exterior Home Solutions. HS Vol wants to know, do you think Elijah Herring...
Hold on a minute. I've never been more nervous than trying to get Hubs off that roof. I mean, that new hip, that had disaster written all over it. Now keep going.
Do you think Elijah Herring pushes Keenan Peely for snaps by the back half of the season? And what do you predict the most valuable, outside of Milton, player is on offense and defense this year?
Well, I can answer the second question really easy. But as far as Elijah Herring, I just think it depends on how Peely adjusts to playing in the league, Hubbard. He had that injury a couple years ago. I'm not sure he was fully back healthy last year. If he's back to his old self and can adjust well to this league, then I'm not sure he's pushing him for snaps. I do think he plays. I think BJ is going to play a bigger rotation of players at linebacker in 2023. And as far as the most important player on this team is not Joe Milton, it's Cooper Mays. If Cooper Mays goes down, it's going to be trying to figure out who is going to snap the ball and run this offense from the center spot. So Cooper Mays is the most important player of the team, and that's not my affinity for the Mays brothers. I'd say the same thing of Ollie Lane. That's the only center they had. It is what it is, and they just don't have a whole lot of depth.
Yeah, the center's such a valuable position for this offense. I'll say this. Eric, I thought Brian Jean-Marie rotated linebackers a ton a year ago. Heavy. At some points in time, you're like, wait a minute, what are they doing here? Why are they rotating here? So I think his approach, because they play so many snaps on defense, not going to rotate as much as they do on the defensive line, but he is going to regularly rotate guys. So Elijah Herring is going to get reps because he's going to be in the regular rotation. Whatever series that is, he's going to get playing time and we'll get that. I think that BJ sees that much more as, I've got 4 guys who can help me at linebacker or more compared to 2 years ago where he said, I got 1.5 linebacker, and I'm trying to piecemeal this thing together. He's in a total different place with his personnel right now. And I think he's going to play a bunch of those guys, more than just 4 probably when it's all said and done.
I completely agree. I think we get too caught up in the term starter. Sometimes in basketball, for sure. Rob, I hear you say this all the time. Who are the 5 out there doesn't matter because you got guys who are going to have those minutes all the time. It's kind of the same with the front 7 in football, especially, right? The defensive line, it. Aaron Beasley wasn't a starter last year, quote unquote, for over the majority of the games last year, but he led the team in tackles. So he plays his snaps, and of course he'll be a starter this year. So I couldn't agree more. And as far as important players, Jacob Warren on offense is so important because that tight end position is so important. And also, again, I'll echo you guys, the center position, because Tennessee's just never had a true backup center that you had confidence in, really, since Josh Heupel's been here. So that is of great importance. Let's go to Slappy Vol. For players that OV June the 16th weekend, how many end up in the 2024 class? Over, under 3.5?
Percentages, AP. Give me percentages.
For next weekend. That's hard. I'm just not comfortable doing that one at this point. I love to play these games as much as anybody, but,
What about the next weekend? Over, under 7.5? Comfortable there? I guess that's a no. Bottom line, these next 2 weekends, there's going to be a ton of kids on campus. Tennessee's got to make some moves, right?
Yeah, that's right. Again, this weekend, you've got Edwin Spillman coming to town. That's super important. You want to get that one, finished out. And he'll take the Georgia visit next weekend, but I still think Tennessee's in a great spot there. And, the Ronan O'Connell visit, next weekend is similar type deal. You want to show strong, finish that one out, all that stuff. So, I mean, just the next 2 weeks and then the subsequent 3 or 4 weeks after that for when kids announce will be massive.
All right, let's go to Grover Levy. So, we got a couple of questions. What role, if any, did seating capacity play in the decision to Southern Miss as a host school for this weekend? I mean, yeah, you had an opportunity to make a couple more $1,000s and sell about 3,000 more tickets if 3 games were played, which they were, and I think that had a lot to do with it. You look at all the standing room only tickets and all those tents beyond the outfield wall, and I mean, it looked really cool on TV, and they had the ability to do that more so than Lindsey Nelson did. Recent decommitment of J.J. Harrell in any way tied to the Vols' chances of landing the big 3 of Amari Jefferson, Mike Matthews, and Ryan Wingo. From the outside looking in, it seems as though it might be, as apparently the only plan is to take 3 wide receivers.
No. We're at a point where like these don't have anything to do with the other. 2, Tennessee, I've said for 6 to 8 weeks, Tennessee's going to take 4 wide receivers. So, whether that's 3 in the preps and 1 in the portal, whether that's 4 and, whatever, they're going to take 4. Like, they're super thin at that receiver spot. And if, again, if Dante Thornton is who Tennessee hopes he is, then he's going to be one and done, which means Brew, Mel, and Dante are all out the door and, headed to the league or exhausted eligibility, however you want to say it. And then it's, a bunch of guys plus Squirrel who haven't played.
Okay, and a basketball question, or 2 questions, Rob. Given the performance of Jemai Meshack and his ability to, and the lack of ability to attack the rim by Tennessee players, do you see an increased role for him next year?
I would think so. I mean, I would think his role would be similar to maybe what it was, coming down the stretch in the tournament. I know the coaches loved what they got from Jemai. And when you look at I don't think he's ever going to be a great offensive player, and I don't want to sell him short. I mean, maybe he will be. But
he's already proved it done.
I was going to say, if looking at the jump he made from freshman to sophomore year, if he can continue, kind of on that trajectory, I think Jemai has a chance to be one of the best 2-way players in the league because of how good he is on defense. If he can just become an adequate 3-point shooter, put that in with his ability to slash. I like Jemai a lot. Yes, I think he will have a big role on this team.
And again, that term, starter, he might not be a starter, but he will play a whole lot of minutes.
He'll be one of those guys playing 20-plus minutes.
Yeah, exactly. JP Australia seems to be the prototypical stretch 4 who can contribute sooner rather than later. How does this staff see him? Is that kind of how they see him? Yeah,
I got to get stronger. I mean, I'm not sure what freshman year is going to look like for him, just because he really does need to add weight. I mean, he's one of those kids that hit that growth spurt in high school, going from a kid who was a 6'2", 6'3" guard to now he's a 6'11" rim protector. Still has a lot of those guard skills. To me, he's the most intriguing guy in this class, and I count Freddie in there as an early enrollee just because of the skill set JP does have. He can step out at 6'10", 6'11", knock down perimeter shots. He's a legit rim protector. He can handle the ball, has really nice vision. And again, the challenge with JP got to get stronger. How soon it will happen for him, I don't know. Right now, his physicality is not at the same place his skill set is, but he's a really intriguing player.
How would you compare him to Jokic? Do you think he can be Tennessee Jokic?
Yeah, if he puts on about 100 pounds and half a foot.
Vols by 1998 wants to know, Brent Hubbs, do you like On3 so far, and what does Volquest need to do to be the #1 network in On3?
More people subscribe, right? Tell your friends. I mean,
hey, there's a great June promo right now. Go ahead and do it.
I mean, that's the bottom line. But I mean, we've got to continue to produce a great product for you. And that's our goal, and we're always trying to evolve and change and move forward. And obviously, we love being, I love being a part of the On3 family. it's because of the people that are around, the help that you get from a regional standpoint, a national standpoint, other team sites, the fact that you know everybody, it has been a blessing. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun. And again, we hope you tell all your friends, and we hope that you take advantage of the opportunities and the promos that we have out there. And then at that point, it's on us to deliver. And hopefully we have delivered well for you so far, and we'll continue to only deliver better and better moving forward.
All right, let's move on now to hitter. Daniel Calhoun spends more time at Tennessee than he does at his own house. Why hasn't he committed yet?
Because he spends a lot of time also at Georgia and Alabama. And right now I would lean the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's been on the road a bunch. I mean, for a couple of years. I mean, he's taken a ton of unofficial visits to a lot of places. He's been to Miami, I think, 2 or 3 times, AP?
Yeah.
He's got some ties to Alabama, obviously Georgia in-state. So, yeah, I mean, he's been here this spring, multiple times, but he's not moving up here every weekend. He's been to Georgia as much as he's been to Tennessee. He's been to Alabama as much as he's been to Tennessee.
All right, we got a baseball question here. Tennessee baseball is going to have fresh arms in Omaha, fresh bullpen arms in Omaha. Do you think not getting work in the bullpen with some of those arms is going to hurt Tennessee? Not being in a high-stress environment, yada, yada, yada. I know what you're saying, but no. Guys being rested is a really, really good thing. Plus, your Burns, your Halversons, your Sewells, they've been getting work. These guys still throw bullpens every other day. They're staying sharp and everything. And Kirby and Aaron Combs and some of these guys have gotten a little bit of work, just not an awful lot. But your horses have gotten work, and the fact that you are fresh and as rejuvenated as you could possibly be heading into Omaha, that is a great, great thing. So if you could make up your baseball super team from the last 5 years, goodness gracious, how would that lineup look like? I'm not doing a lineup, guys, but help me out here. Last 5 years, there have been some pretty good Tennessee baseball players, and that's you've seen some guys go to the show and work their way up. Ben Joyce would be on that team. I think Drew Gilbert would be on that team for sure. Andre Lipsius would probably be on that team. Jordan Beck would be on that team.
I'm not equipped to answer that question.
I mean, there's been a lot of guys who have gone on and been drafted the last 5 years under Tony Vitello for sure. The ones I just mentioned, Trey Lipscomb, last year. There's probably some more I'm forgetting, but those are probably some of the highlights of the last 5 years, for sure. And then let's finish off with a Rocky Top T. I like our receiver room, but I think Bruce should be the go-to guy this year. He is a beast. What is your thoughts on that? Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, Brew had a great year, great first year here last year. I know he's really had a strong off season and hopes to build upon that this year. And, I do think he gets more targets. But you also have to factor in, Joe's super tight with Ramel Keaton. Those two kind of bonded when they were on with the twos a year ago, before Ramel kind of, filled in for Cedric Tillman when he was hurt. And then, they really like that slot position a lot, in this offense. So, I think Brew will get plenty of targets, and I think he has a big part in this offense. But I still think, the slot positions where you're going to see a ton of play.
Okay, we will end here with 2 more baseball questions. Kind of a lot here, and that's okay because Tennessee's in Omaha. CN31, assume Beam, Burns, Halverson are the weekend guys next season, but Burns is so good at closing out games. Would you want to take his arm away from the bullpen, go to the portal, and get another arm? Halverson's going to be drafted, so Halverson's going to be gone. Burns is 100% a starting option next year. Also, I would not shock me whatsoever if Tennessee is to go out and get a pitcher from the portal, whether that be starting and or in the bullpen. Tennessee will be active in the portal. A.J. Russell is also a very, very great candidate to be a starting pitcher next year as well, the freshman All-American. So those are some things to keep in mind. And do you think playing on the road in Super Regional was a blessing in disguise instead of playing in the home run friendly ballpark? No. I mean, I think playing on the road and kind of getting over that I can't win on the road mentality is a good thing, because you went to Clemson, you won that region, and you did it in dramatic fashion, outlasting the Tigers in 14 innings. You go to Southern Miss, hostile environment,
You go back to South
incredible
Carolina
fan.
too, Eric. That's 3 in a row, really.
Yeah, in South Carolina in the regular season, absolutely. And you've proven, okay, sure, the record wasn't great at the points and times of the season, but you've proven now that you can win on the road. And so I don't really buy into that anymore. Plus, I mean, this team is 33-5 at home. So if this team was playing at home, I think they'd be excited. But I don't think it has anything to do with the dimensions at Lindsey Nelson Stadium and who they were playing. So we'll see what Tennessee looks like in Omaha this week. And it's its second trip to the College World Series in the last 3 years, 6 overall. Should be exciting for sure. Appreciate all you guys for sending in your questions to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. We got an incredible deal, a June promo going on right now, $1 for 3 months or half off. And it's going on for a limited amount of time. So go ahead and get that in here at Volquest.com if you want to become a new member. Join us on the General's Quarters. Really, really good June promo. It's not going to last much longer.
That's right. You can get 3 months of Trey McNutt coverage, baby, for $1.
It only took 37 minutes, and we got the drop. I'm surprised it didn't creep in here before that. For Brett Hubbs, Austin Price, Rob Lewis, I am Eric Kane. Big shout out as always to our friends Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the General's Quarters. This has been the Volquest Mailbag Podcast.